Well, it's very nice to see you here. There are a lot of people in the audience I know. I hope that's a good sign. There are quite a lot of people from the Home Office and its agencies, particularly the UK Border Agency, but it's also nice to see lots of people from other parts of the civil service. I'm relying on the Home Office people to ask some very easy questions later. But actually, just to warn you, there will be a question and answer session, and I hope quite an active one, because I think some of the value of this occasion will be in you extracting from me what you want to find out. But of course, as always on these occasions, the speaker gets to go first, and I have some things I want to say. Just so that you can fix me, I'm David Normington. I'm the Permanent Secretary at the Home Office. I've been doing the job for 3.5 years. It sometimes seems longer than that, but mostly it has flown by. Before that, I was the Permanent Secretary at the Department for Education and Skills, name now changed. DCSF and is the main inheritor of the DFES. So I've been a Permanent Secretary for 8 years. And in that time, I know quite a lot about how it looks from the top of the civil service, but I'm quite interested in how it looks from where you sit. And if I don't quite hit the button in my remarks, it's really important that you find your way of extracting from me the things you really want to know. I'm going to tell you a story about the Home Office. I'm going to tell you a story about the Home Office's progress of change and improvement. It's very much my story from my perspective as the leader of the organisation, and there'll be people in this hall who, in the Home Office, who will have their own experiences, some good, some not so good, to tell, and they'll be able to make the comparisons as they go along. I want to start in May 2006. The Home Office was on its knees with its public reputation shredded. We'd been unable to produce our financial accounts. The Home Secretary of the day, Charles Clarke, had lost his job because of our failings in handling foreign national prisoners. The new Home Secretary, John Reid, famously told the Home Affairs Select Committee, I remember it well, I was sitting next to him, and it was in front of the television cameras, that we were not fit for purpose. Actually, didn't quite say that, but that is how it was reported, and that fit for purpose phrase has become synonymous with the Home Office from that point. There followed a capability review, which, as many of you know, is a review which is conducted for each government department by an external team of assessors. And that happened just at that time and was the first of the very first batch of 3. That review found us wanting in many respects. And when that was published, alongside the not fit for purpose remarks and alongside the foreign national prisoners problems, we found ourselves in a torrent of media abuse day after day after day, which continued on and off for the rest of 2006 and much of the following year. Lesson 1, try to avoid having your capability review at the same time as your Home Secretary resigns. The reviewers stood on our balcony overlooking our atrium. I don't know why I'm smiling at this, actually. It was tragic. Watching Charles Clarke leave and watching John Reid arrive. It seemed almost preordained that we would get a poor review, and we did. It was one that put us at the bottom of the Whitehall league table. It's like all reviews. There isn't a league table. But nevertheless, we were at the bottom of it, well below all the others, a place, of course, we retained for the whole of the next 2 years, because we were right at the beginning, and as everybody else got reviewed, everybody was ahead of us. And lesson 2 is, don't feel sorry for yourself for long. It wasn't the capability review that was the problem, it was the Home Office. And once the senior team had faced up to that, which was frankly not easy, we could begin the task of rebuilding and reforming the department. And I want to tell you that story of reform and reconstruction in the Home Office. I can do so because I'm still here to tell the story, which means that there was a happier sequel, because in 2008, when the capability review came round again 2 years later, the review found dramatic improvements in every area of the Home Office. We shed all our red and amber red scores. We improved in almost every category, and in some categories by 2 levels. We improved by 11 points in the unofficial scoring system, which the Financial Times favours, and we closed the gap on the other excellent departments in our batch, which were DWP and DCSF, from a gap in 2006 of 10 points to a gap of 4. We were particularly praised for our leadership and delivery. We even gathered some small positive headlines. Just hold on to that, a positive headline about the Home Office. Smaller, of course, than the bad ones in 2006, but still positive. And I particularly liked the Financial Times headline, which said, "Home Office gets fitter for purpose," and Michael White of The Guardian headline, "Fit for purpose at last." I'm going to talk about how this turnaround was achieved, and in doing so, to draw some lessons about how organisations can change and improve. But be under no misapprehension, I'm not here to declare victory for the Home Office. I never do that. The Home Office is not, and its agencies are not yet where we would want them to be. And indeed, one of the lessons I want to draw is that great organisations in the public sector must never stand still. They must always aim higher, always look for ways of serving the public better, always expect more of their workforce and their stakeholders and partners. And I'll come back to this message again in a minute. The other thing I want to say by way of preamble is this. It profoundly matters to me that the Home Office should be performing excellently. But not only that, that it should also be recognised as doing so. And wherever you're from in this audience, I hope it matters to you. You see, the Home Office is the oldest government department of all. It dates back to 1782. It is responsible for, and it always has been, the fundamentals of the state: law and order, the security of our borders, the protection of UK citizens. If it doesn't command public confidence, then public confidence in the fundamentals of the state, in the government, in the civil service, in our collective ability to protect our citizens is also undermined and damaged. And that's why it's my absolute passion, and has been for the last 3.5 years, that the Home Office should be the best it can possibly be. And I hope you'd hear that from any colleague who headed a government department. But I would say the mission that the Home Office has for protecting the public makes that more important than almost any. So how have we gone about it? Well, the one thing we didn't lack in 2000 was the impetus for change, what the textbooks in the jargon call the burning platform. If you want to get an organisation to change, then you need somehow to generate a sense of urgency and pace, a desire for reform. We didn't need to generate that in 2006. We just had to read the headlines day after day after day. So we had that urgency for reform in spades. And of course, there were people in the organisation, and there are still some, who were in denial about the scale of the crisis and resentful about what had happened. Because, of course, no whole department of, at that time, 70,000 staff is, as a whole, not fit for purpose. There are always pockets of excellence, and there were many in the Home Office, but many people, of course, took personally that constant torrent of abuse that I referred to. Once we'd accepted that there was no alternative for us to change, the first key to success was that we moved fast in the summer of 2006 to produce an action plan for reform. It took 6 weeks. We just took 6 weeks over it. It was very rough and ready, but actually it was designed to put some stakes in the ground about how we were going to get out of this situation. It was the unequivocal statement of the leadership of the Home Office that we were intent on fundamentally changing the department. It was an essential step in convincing our ministers, and of course they were a bit sceptical, the media very sceptical, and the public not quite sure what to think, that we were determined to change. Secondly, we always said in that first reform plan that we would never take our eye off the frontline delivery of services to the public. We said we would cut our head office staff by 1/3 so that we could redirect resources to frontline services, particularly at the border, and we did. We committed ourselves to a £2 billion efficiency saving so that we could meet our commitments to increase police numbers, to introduce PCSOs, to put a neighbourhood team in every ward. All that was achieved on time. Indeed, we exceeded the efficiency target. And I believe actually we're the only major department in Whitehall to meet virtually all but half of our 2004 PSA targets, all our headcount reduction targets, and all our efficiency targets. And by the way, when you're on your knees, you must meet all your published commitments because you get no allowance for not doing so. Building confidence that you can actually deliver is an essential key to improving. Thirdly, we completely reshaped our top team. Initially, the Home Office board and the director level, but then more widely. In our summer 2006 plan, we said we would change 20 of our directors by Christmas, and this too was achieved. But more important than that has been the work over time to invest in the skills of our leaders, giving them the skills to improve performance, giving them the skills to coach their staff to higher standards. In the first 2 years of our reform, we focused deliberately on our top 200 in the Home Office because we needed that team to be united in purpose and to have the leadership and people management skills to lead. Of course, you never get there completely, but we needed to improve. And we've now widened our ambition to everyone in the Home Office and its agencies with a leadership role at whatever level. We want everyone to upgrade their management and leadership skills where they have that need. Fourthly, we put in place a new system for risk and crisis management. If you think about us, we had to get better at anticipating the risks. We had to get more people in our organisation to understand how what they did could put the public at risk. We had, above all, I think, to give people in our organisation confidence, and this job is not done, that if they said to their managers, this isn't working, we're worried about this, we're worried about its impact, that wouldn't be pushed away, it would be welcomed and dealt with. One of the hardest things to achieve, as colleagues in the room will tell you, particularly if your manager's not very good. And when there was a crisis, we had to show we could deal with it. And we have quite a few crises in the Home Office. We're often on the front page, sometimes for the wrong reasons. We had to show that we could deal with it without the whole organisation going into free fall. One of those analogies which is often used is of the football match of 6-year-olds where they all run after the ball. They don't stay in position. They all run after the ball. Well, sometimes dealing with crises seemed like that. We all ran after the crisis rather than dealing with it but actually keeping our eye on the purpose. Fifthly, we promised from the start, and I have constantly repeated that promise, not sure how much I'm believed, but I keep repeating it, that we would fix the basic defects in systems and processes which actually lie at the root of many of the Home Office's failures and long-term problems. Now, I want to pause on this because when people give leadership talks, they talk about big issues, vision, direction, motivation, But actually, if you ignore the basic underpinning of that, you can have all the vision and imagination you like, but you won't put right some of the things that really matter in the organization. If you listen to our staff in 2006, as I did a lot, and it's still true to some extent today, they felt let down by the basic systems and processes, by the pay system, which had just failed, by the accounting system, by the archaic HR rules, by the fact that communications between prisons and the immigration system was by fax, which I always think is the 21st century equivalent of the messenger carrying a message on a pony. Who has fax machines these days? Or who uses them anyway? Talk to any staff in the UK Border Agency, which is the Home Office's biggest executive agency, and they will tell you of their constant frustration with the legacy IT systems, and particularly the caseworking system. So no reform of the Home Office, which was going to stick, could ignore the fixing of these systems and more. And so we are engaged in, and people keep saying, well, when's it going to be? When's it going to be? Actually, in some cases, it's going to be quite a way off still, but we are engaged in a long, determined slog, not yet complete, to fix the basics. Doesn't sound very exciting, but most of our staff will tell you it will be the thing that will transform the way they do their job. The sixth and final key to our progress is the investment we make in our staff. The 26,000 people in the Home Office itself and in our agencies, the UK Border Agency, the Identity and Passport Service, the Criminal Records Bureau. It's their skills, I should say it's your skills, because there are many of them here, your commitment, your confidence, on which we depend to keep this upward spiral of progress. Now, I'm not going to overclaim here, because Home Office colleagues can and will speak for themselves, and actually that's part of the recovery. We want them to speak for themselves. They know better than anyone how much we've achieved, but they also know how far we still have to go. And I emphasize this is about building in any organization skills and confidence. At all levels, it's essential to invest in people's development on and off the job, and the Home Office's broader skills strategy is acknowledged by the Cabinet Office to be one of the best in Whitehall. But what I have also been seeking to do since I got to the Home Office is to change the way we engage and involve our staff, and it's a never-ending task, by engaging in a continuous dialogue with our staff, listening hard to what people are saying, responding and trying to act when they are right, arguing and explaining robustly when they are wrong. I use all kinds of techniques to achieve this, including face-to-face meetings and messages and videos. Of course, everybody does this. My blog, which has become in the organization quite an important symbol of the right of any member of staff. Many of them who appear on the blog are quite, as colleagues will know, tend to grumble a lot, but it is their right to have their say direct to me. I do read the blog, I always respond myself. It's always me. People need to hear my voice. And you may think it fanciful that senior leaders could have a useful dialogue with 26,000 staff, and of course you can't, but you have to create that sense for you and your senior team that that might be possible, and that if there's something that people need to say, they can actually say it. It is essential to me that the people who work for me have some sense of what the person and the people at the top stand for, and that they feel they can influence me direct. Just occasionally on a Sunday afternoon or a Friday afternoon, I grind my teeth at this. You have to be very willing to listen to all sorts of complaints about your organization, some justified and some not. But that's the deal, really. You have to be prepared to listen. And everybody who makes a comment is doing it for a purpose. And if you don't understand that, then you don't really deserve to be in a management position. I also want, therefore, my managers to engage in the same kind of dialogue. This is very hard for them. Some managers, and they're at all levels, sometimes think that communication with their colleagues is an add-on, and it's to be done when the rest of the day job is finished. But as I often say, it is the day job. Unless you're going to do everything else yourself, you've got to engage your team. And constant dialogue and exchange is the way you build team motivation and commitment. We're also looking to build confidence through recognition and praise, something I don't think the civil service is ever good enough at. What happened in 2006 seriously undermined our confidence. People wouldn't tell their neighbours where they worked. Many people who were doing their best for the public, as I said earlier, took personally the not fit for purpose comment. And it's a long job to restore that confidence internally. But once we had the capability review 2008 under our belt, we began to celebrate our successes a bit more. Got criticised in the Daily Mail for this, but actually having feedback, having celebration, having recognition and praise is what any well-run organisation needs to do. And of course the best kind of testimony comes from others, from external benchmarking. In other words, when outside organisations praise the Home Office or the UK Border Agency or the IPS, or we win competitions or come top of league tables. And actually this assumes a bigger importance when you've been at the bottom of a league table than it would normally do. And in the past past year, we have therefore been seeking to come in the top 3 departments in Whitehall. We've done so in our assessments of financial management, in our procurement capability, in our skills strategy. We won most of the awards, the most awards at the Civil Servant of the Year. Frankly, the Home Office will go anywhere to win a prize. And that's really important. Don't knock it. We always just have trouble knocking the DWP off its perch, actually. That often comes, DCF, DWP often come, we have an ambition to be ahead of them, and I think, not that I'm competitive, you understand. So we'll go anywhere to win a prize, and then these days we'll try to celebrate quite noisily. Cheaply, of course, but noisily. Let me try to sum up these 6 keys to reform again. I think it applies to any organisation. Move fast and set the direction early. That's the first one. Move faster than the organisation wants you to. Secondly, focus your mission on the ultimate outcomes, which is usually about service to the public in some way, not just on the process. Process is interesting, but it isn't what we're really about. Thirdly, make sure you have the right leadership team in place at any level where you have leadership, even, I'm afraid, if it means moving some people on. And I know that's difficult, but actually it can be done. Make sure you have good risk and crisis management, that you're scanning the horizon for risks and crises, so that your long-term purpose is not thrown off course by the first crisis. Fifth, underpin the vision with some basic good management of your systems and processes. Otherwise, you won't convert the vision fast enough into action. And finally, engage with your staff, listening, involving, building their skills. Your staff are often the people who know best what is needed, and also they are our greatest ambassadors when they think it's going well. I'm coming to the end of what I want to say in the formal bit, and then there's plenty of time for questions, so it's time for you to think about what you'd like to ask, and feel free, providing it's polite, I'll try to answer any question you want to put. But I want to try and end with 3 final messages. First, when you give a talk like this, there's a danger of giving the impression that the process of change is smooth and orderly. I just set the direction and it all goes well. Well, I can assure you, and this may reassure you, it's not like that. We had plenty of setbacks. we had endless crises, particularly at that time around the prisons. We had changes of Home Secretary. The Home Office was split up. New functions on counter-terrorism and on customs were added. There were times when I thought that our reform efforts would never bear fruit, that this supertanker that was the Home Office would just keep going along. But I think this is something to take encouragement from. If, as a leader, if you're constant in your ambition and ready always to look for the opportunities and to turn setbacks into opportunities, if you inject what the Cabinet Secretary is always talking about, pace and passion into your leadership, change will happen, and it'll happen just after you've begun to give up hope. So never give up hope. It will begin to happen. No one wants to work for long in an organization which is not fit for purpose. Secondly, of course, as I said this at the beginning, the task is never done. We're preparing now for the next capability review, which will probably be in 2010. I say probably in 2010 because there are likely to be some other events in 2010 which may make the timing a little difficult. But what's going to happen at the next round of capability reviews is that the performance bar is going to be raised. They're I think, going to take the amber out. So you'll either be amber green or you'll be amber red. Now, I don't like amber reds, so we'll have to raise our capability to try to be in the top half of that measurement. For us, this has been a period of dramatic improvement, but it leaves lots of areas of unfinished business. And if you asked our staff, they would be pleased we'd improved and restored our confidence to some extent, but I think many would be sceptical about whether the change was embedded and also sceptical about whether it will be seen through, because there's always a legacy of people who remember the last change programme and whether it actually changed anything. I also don't kid myself about our public profile. It's better by far, but we've not exercised the ghosts of 2006. They return every time the Home Office hits the headlines in relation to a public protection issue. And to be frank, when this round of capability reviews is over, because remember we were at the beginning, so when it came to 2008 we were at the beginning again, the Home Office is almost certain to be the most improved, but we may only still be mid-table in that non-existent league table I talked about, and that's if we're lucky. So third point, and then I'll finish, the task of transformation lies ahead. We want to be the best. No other ambition for the Home Office will do. And I know, it's the motivation and the capability and the skill of our staff which will ultimately take us there. Immediately the 2008 review was over, we began to renew our ambition, to build public confidence further, to raise our performance levels again, to take our relationships with a lot of partners on whom we depend to a new level. And we've been challenging our middle managers to raise the expectations of themselves and their teams. In the end, it's not how good we feel about ourselves. The Home Office mission is working together to protect the public. So ultimately, we must be judged, and we want to be, by whether crime is coming down, whether people feel safer in their homes and communities. It's about whether we're able to welcome legal visitors to the UK and stop and return illegal migrants. It's about the confidence that people in the country have in the police, confidence that their concerns are being tackled and that when criminals are caught, they will be punished. It's about whether every interaction that people have with the services for which the Home Office is responsible is as good as it can possibly be. And we're not there yet, and these are very high ambitions. But I'd just like to leave you with this thought. That is what being in the public service is about. Serving the public to the highest standards at the best value to the taxpayer. Nothing else will do. Thank you very much. Now, we've got lots of time for questions, and lots of things I haven't covered, and very happy to have lots of questions. And I think there's one, there may be two microphones, or microphones. So if you could say who you are and where you come from, that would be really helpful. And if there's another question, I might take a couple at a time, but we'll see.
My name's Lisa. I'm from Revenue and Customs. You talked a lot about leadership and emphasised the need for leadership, and that you transferred leadership and people management skills to the group. Can you say a bit more about what exactly those skills were and how you did that? Yeah. I'll answer that, and then I'll answer that, and then I'll come to you in a minute. There's a lady behind. I'll come to her in a minute. There's no magic about this. We did what other organisations do, but we did it quite quickly, which was, first of all, to assess the skills and capabilities, first of all, of our senior team. And we got some people to do a sort of skills audit of what the skills of our senior team were, and we used 360-degree feedback, amongst other techniques, for doing that. And what it said is what I know, which is that the ability of our senior staff to improve the performance of their staff, to manage their staff, to develop their staff, needs improving. And in the first round of leadership development, we put a lot of emphasis on coaching skills. I'm a great believer that if we all developed our ability to coach our staff, which is quite a skill, but it can be learnt, that at all levels our management would be improved. I got this, I began to realise this when I went on the top management programme in 1991, and we spent a whole day practising how to coach each other. And in the DFES, we put a lot of effort into, with the Industrial Society as it then was, developing coaching skills there. And it had a powerful impact on the quality of leadership and management. Now, there are lots of other things you need to do, but in terms of injecting some improvement, that was where we started. And of course, some people are better at it than others, that's always so, but a lot of leadership skills can be learnt. The really great leaders have some additional instinct and magic about them, but most people can be brought up to a good level by really practicing, and that's what we did. So coaching, and then linking that to how do you coach people when they are average to poor performers. You know this thing we have, we're in a sort of collective depression in the civil service about whether we can tackle poor performance. Well, again, it's been about trying to build our confidence and capability that we can do that. And again, some of it can be learnt. What you can't quite give people is that absolute determination just at the point when they need to say, I'm really sorry, it's not good enough.